was the creative lead on a video game that's been played by some of the biggest content creators in the world. It's even had partnerships with Intel, Microsoft, and the Chicago Blackhawks. But it's been 5 years since I left that team, and I haven't mentioned it until now. This is a story about success, ego, and betrayal. Rewind to 2019, and little baby Aya has zero experience making games. Instead, I was a PC gamer and had a love for everything hockey. So naturally, when I heard about a free physics-based hockey game on Steam, I became a fast fan. I became super active in the community. It's where the unicorn came from, and I started casting matches in an organized league.
2 seconds left, it hits off a Sapster and goes in.
So when the original developer announced he no longer wanted to develop the game, it was heartbreaking news. But thankfully, one of the other developers bought the rights to the intellectual property and started making a sequel, and I was invited to test it. Knowing nothing about game development at the time, the state the game was in had me absolutely worried. But instead of just idly sitting by, I decided to help out by doing graphic design mock-ups of UI and trying my hand at programming solutions the dev team was having. Honestly, it was kind of like showing up to your dream job, picking a desk, and just working even if they didn't hire you. But with enough persistence, they did eventually invite me to the team for a 15% revenue share. In this particular case, our agreement was for 15% after Steam's cut and any server expenses. I was totally happy with 15%. After all, I had next to no experience. But my passion for the community and game helped me pick up and learn new things like a sponge. This part-time thing quickly became something I spent practically every waking moment on. The lead dev recognized this and increased my rev share to 20% and gave me the role of creative lead. Keep in mind that at this point, the 20% really didn't mean anything because we're still making the game. It's mostly an IOU. As development goes though, we ran into some stumbling blocks. Making a sequel to an existing game might sound easy, but it immediately sets a high bar and point of direct comparison. We needed players to test, but it was hard to pull people away from a game they already loved to play a buggy work in progress. On at least a couple of occasions, the lead dev had frustrations boil over and publicly called some volunteer testers idiots, which would forever change our relationship with parts of the community. Burnout would rear its head here and there, and there was a point late in development where I had to talk down the lead dev after he suggested canceling the project after months of not being able to fix networking issues. But through all of that, we did eventually get to an early access release on December 7th, 2020, and the money started rolling in. And that's not hyperbole. We were making between $30,000 and $40,000 per month. One major difference between the first game and this remake was that the new lead dev had a goal to monetize it. The original game had an optional $15 supporter bundle, which brought in just enough money for us to break even after server costs. We implemented something similar in the new game, but that's not where we stopped. Perhaps one of the biggest things that we did was adding an in-game currency called pucks. This allowed us to assign value to a metric in our game that we could also monetize. You slowly gain pucks for free as you play, but of course you could also buy bundles. Each tier granted a large amount of pucks that weren't easily converted to a dollar amount. This was purposefully designed to avoid players shaming other players who might have expensive loadouts. We also tacked on a percentage increase for each tier to incentivize the higher cost bundles. You might be saying to yourself, oh, that's where they made all the money, but actually the amount of revenue we generated from the supporter bundle and in-game purchases was alarmingly small. The real moneymaker was through in-game advertising, and we didn't implement ads like you would see in a mobile game. The tech we use is actually kind of interesting. It tracks an ad's angle and display size to determine valid views. We placed ads around the boards, and they fit naturally since they're already in actual ice hockey rinks. We got in on the ground floor with an ads platform, so when we launched, a good portion of the ads the company was serving were to our game. But as the platform added more games, our revenue started to decrease, and worry started to set in. It was around this time that the lead dev floated buying the rights to a game called Slappy Ball. And this is where things start to get complicated. The way things were set up, each of us 4 developers had a revenue share. What we got was after any expenses, so minus Steam fee, server costs, and any miscellaneous expenses. If the studio wanted to buy the rights to a new game, our agreement didn't cover that. We had to specifically invoice to be paid, and none of us really did that, so what we were owed was a hefty amount. The lead dev needed our approval to dip into the funds we were owed. This would eventually result in a proposal for a new contract where we'd lose the money we were owed but gain a percentage share of the company. I originally agreed to this, but in the months leading up to receiving a formal contract, things changed. We tried to think of ideas for a new game, and it was pretty clear no one was on the same page. Rebound was a remake, so the ideation was done. Not being able to agree on a new idea was a big red flag. In addition to our revenue decreasing, some ongoing talks with publishers fell through. And then another round of burnout set into the team. For whatever reason, I've been able to avoid burnout, so there was around a month and a half worth of time where I felt like I was the only one working on the project. There are entire patches where I was the lone author. So you can imagine my surprise when I received the new contract and the percentage I was being offered was lower than what I was already making. I don't know if any of you watch Shark Tank, but let's recap here. At the time, my existing contract was 20% of Slapshot's net revenue. This new contract required me to forego the $38,599 I was owed for 15% ownership. For context, agreeing to this would mean that I would have worked full-time for a year and a half for basically free. And at that time, and even still nearly 5 years later, Slapshot was the entire company. To make things worse, the contract implemented a vesting period, which meant on day 1 I'd have 0% ownership and would have to put in at least 3 years to have full access to my 15%. It also came with a gnarly 5-year non-compete that would only start ticking after my last day of employment. The lead dev assured me that this was all industry standard, which to this day I don't know if that's true or not, but still a rough hand to be dealt. Just because other people have agreed to those terms didn't mean that I had to. To say this offer made me feel undervalued would be an understatement. So much so that I couldn't find it in me to even negotiate changes. And because I wouldn't sign the new contract, the lead dev fired me. It was honestly one of the saddest days of my life. I poured everything I had into that project and community, and within minutes of publicly announcing I was stepping away, had all of my access revoked. Obviously, that was inevitable. It was just a surreal feeling to have everything you helped build disappear in an instant. The speed at which it happened was fueled by pent-up animosity the lead dev would later disclose. Now, I admit that it was lame that I verbally agreed to the idea of a new contract and then didn't sign it after seeing the details. But that's why contracts exist. The lead dev blamed me for what he saw as a missed opportunity in acquiring Slappy Ball, which saw a brief uptick in player numbers after being acquired by another studio. But honestly, knowing everything I know now, not signing that contract was the right decision. Even still, it's disheartening to hear rumors about my contributions to the project being diminished, and even more upsetting to see it confirmed when my role was changed from the creative lead to artist. Now, there's certainly nothing wrong with being an artist, I just don't think it's representative of what I poured into the project. There's very little of the game that I didn't have a hand in shaping. As sad as it is, it was therapeutic for me to put together a list of every major feature I can remember working on. You guys let me know if it's representative of an artist's role or not. There's more that I could get into, but I don't mean for this to be a drama video. More so to share a few life lessons I learned from this entire project. When it comes to business, don't leave anything up to good faith. Money and stress have a peculiar way of changing people, and sometimes it brings out the worst in us. It's easy to overlook the way someone negatively responds to things, but unless they're actively working on that, at some point you may find yourself on the receiving end of that same energy. Thankfully, this experience wasn't the end of making games for me. To see one of the projects I would have never been able to make if I agreed to a 5-year non-compete, click the video on your screen.